Hey, what is up guys, Angie here, and today I wanted to bring you what I think is my most ambitious piece today, and show you that sometimes you don't really need to know what you're doing to make an artwork that you're happy with. And recently, I've been drawing a lot in just pen in a sketchbook, and that has really improved my drawing. And so I was feeling myself and I was like, all right, let's go. Let's do the best artwork ever. And I went really hard trying to like make a foreshortening pose, trying to get it, you know. You can definitely see me struggle in the speed paint. You can see me erasing a lot of times, coming back in, changing the pose a little bit, and then you start to realize, okay, the problem is not here, the problem is somewhere else. And then I had to take a break from this piece. Obviously in the time lapse you can't tell, but I took about 2 weeks off of this piece. I didn't look at this piece, I didn't touch this piece for 2 weeks, and then I was just, you know, I did the 2 week, I did 2 weeks of just drawing in pen and sessionally in my sketchbook, and I'll probably make a separate video on that and explaining why I think it's great and why you should do it. And although it still feels like a cop-out, the pose that I ended up choosing, because, you know, it's not as dynamic as the original pose that I had intended. I still think it's a good fitting pose, right? Now, I decided to draw Ace. I don't know why. He's not my favorite character. I like him, but, you know, if I was gonna draw a One Piece character because I love the character, I would probably draw Law or Zoro or whatever. But I ended up drawing Ace. Also, I think his design is kind of simple, so it's a good starting thing. Nothing would have prepared me for what would come next. And what I mean by that is, oh, okay, Ace, but also flames. I have no idea how to draw flames, right? I think I did a good job, but then I went and looked up, you know, more or less how to draw flames. I think I did a really good job at drawing flames. But then another problem presents itself, which is, how do flames on top of skin affect the skin? Right? Because obviously it's a light source, and it's really hard to find like cool, like, I don't know how to find good references, so I had to like feel my way through it. Now, like I think I said before, this is my most ambitious piece to date, which is funny because my previous piece, well, not my previous piece, but my second to last previous piece, I also said that it was my most ambitious piece. And I think we should strive to make all our pieces our most ambitious pieces. Obviously, you know, I receded. I went back to, I did my most ambitious piece, air quotes, and I went back to my comfort zone. And then I did this, right? And why is this my most ambitious piece to date? Well, there's a background. The other one also had a background, and this background is not great, not amazing, but it has a lot of moving parts, right? A lot of parts that I usually wouldn't include in my drawings, right? You know, you have the belt buckle, you have the necklace, you have the dangly on the hat, you have the motif on the hat itself, right? And the flames. These are things that I've never really drawn, and I've never really accessorized my characters. And although are things that are simple, that look simple, when it's something that you haven't done a lot, when it's something you don't have the experience in drawing, it can be kinda daunting. It's like this piece took a long time. The Clip Studio Paint tells me it took me like 12 hours to finish this piece, right? And it's probably 12 hours. Well, obviously not, because it took me like 2 weeks to finish this. Maybe not 2 weeks, but like legitimately a week and a half. And by the end of it, I got a really cool artwork, but at the same time, it's like, damn, this took so long. And it put me in a weird state mentally, where I was like, because I was really hyper focusing on this artwork and I wanted to get it done as fast as possible so that I could move on to something else, right? Because if you look at my social medias, I don't have a lot of artwork, right? And I don't have a lot of finished artwork at the end of the day. And I really want, starting from now, I really want to make more finished pieces so that I can publish, so that I can have a body of work out there just for people to see, for me to, be able to show other people that, hey, look at this, I made this. I think my lack of knowledge is in like the colors, the lighting, everything that comes after the sketch. But I also, unfortunately, I think in my head that most progress in your art happens during the sketch, right? Is learning to draw. When there is a lot of value in finishing pieces, obviously, and especially learning how to render, how to solve problems that you have when you're rendering. You really need to finish pieces, and you shouldn't, because that's an issue that I've fallen into, is you shouldn't focus on one part of the drawing process only, right? And that's what I sorta, maybe willingly, maybe unwillingly, have been doing, which is like, okay, once my sketches or once my draftsmanship or once my drawing is great, I can move on to values, or I can move on to color, or I can move on to composition or whatever. And that's not the case. You need to work on these things. I'm not gonna say together, but you need to work on these things in tandem. You can't just isolate them. Obviously, you can do one day of the week I do anatomy, one day of the week I do perspective, one day of the week I do values, one day of the week I do... You can do that. But you can't be like, okay, I need to perfect anatomy, and then I can move on to values. And then I need to perfect values, and then I move on to... That is detrimental for your art, and it will create very large gaps in your art. So that is something that you can't do. And I learned a lot from this piece. I learned a lot of my weaknesses, where they lie, and will definitely work to fix that. And I also learned that I can do a lot more than I think I can. Also, because I think that when you start pushing yourself, you become both surprised and overwhelmed by your lack of skill, right? Or rather, you become surprised by how good you did, but also by how much you're still lacking, right? So yeah, I think everybody should strive to make their most ambitious piece to date, and add something that you've never drawn before. In my case, being flames. And every artwork, make it a little bit better than your last, and try to add an element that you've never drawn before. And I think you will be very surprised with what you have or what you don't have, and it will give you a path that you then can follow. So thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the rest of the speed paint, and I hope to see you around next time. Bye-bye.